It's 8:45pm on Monday the 7th of November 2016 and this is the Cat's Whiskers Podcast live. Hello and welcome to what promised to be probably a little bit of a downbeat edition of the Cat's Whiskers Podcast as we discuss Panthers' 2 defeats over the weekend, plus the signing of new Slovakian D-man Kristian Kudroc and the release of Petr Kalus. We'll also be getting a reaction to Sheffield's webcast statement from the landlady of the Nottingham Legend and the manager of the Bunkers Hill Inn. Plus we'll be looking back on all the other Elite League news and results. To chew the fat over the weekend and all the problems for the Nottingham Panthers, I'm delighted to welcome Tina Taylor.
Hi.
And Paul Balm.
I wish I was delighted to be here.
Well, I'm sure that'll come across in the next 45 minutes or so.
Well, you might be changing your mind by the end of it.
If you want to get in touch with us at any time during the podcast, please do so on Twitter. It's at CatsWhiskersTV. Use the hashtag TCW Live, and the lovely Miss Taylor will be monitoring that throughout the show. So we'll start before we look back on Panthers games. It was announced last night after the defeat against Belfast that Panthers have signed Slovakian defenceman Kristian Kudroc and released forward Petr Kalus. Kudroc is 35 years old, 6'7" defenceman who has played in his career NHL, AHL, Liga in Finland, the Swedish Hockey League, the KHL, and he joins from EC Innsbruck of the EBEL. Paul, I'll start with you. Is he what we need?
Well, we need a defensive defenseman. I've been saying that all season. So from that, from that particular aspect, yes, he quite possibly could be. Is he the only thing we need? No. And the other point really is that he has got some eye-watering penalty minutes.
Tina, your thoughts?
Yes, I would agree with pretty much what Paul just said. I said it last week that we're leaking at the back. Obviously we've got the added bonus now that we don't know how serious Jeff Waugh's injury is. So I'm very, very uncomfortable with us continuing with Logan McMillan on a 5-man defence. I don't think he is particularly comfortable being on defence. I'm not particularly comfortable with him, being on a short defensive roster anyway. So I want to get him looking a bit more comfortable because the forwards need some support. The forwards need all the help they can get because that's another area that we are lacking at the moment. We're lacking in goals and we're lacking in the defensive metal to stop the goals going in at the other end. So he's part of what we need. I think he's one part of the puzzle, and I wouldn't be surprised if he wasn't the only movement in the coming weeks.
Paul, is Kalus the right player to have been pushed out? Or do you think there were others who were probably ahead of him in the queue in that regard?
If you'd asked me this time last night, I'd have said no. But I've been looking at some stats today, very kindly provided by Tina. And so I'm probably stealing her thunder now. Sorry. And the only goal he scored was the penalty shot winner in Manchester in 7-8 games that he played. I'm not even entirely sure he scored in Hacker, did he?
Yes, he did. I think he got a couple.
Yes, I believe he did.
Yeah, but that's no real. It's nothing to write home about. In terms of are there any more? Then I think there has to be more. You know, there are other players who aren't performing. I'm not going to read out all the Tina's stats. That would be rude of me. So I'll let her answer the rest of that.
Well, yeah. I mean, well, just to sort of fill a gap in the knowledge, Kalus scored 1 goal in Hacker, according to what I sort of wrote down. Is he unlucky? No, I don't think he is. I don't think he's lucky at all. Unlucky at all. I think he's just not performed. He's not delivered what we expect of him. You know, we've seen Petr Kalus before, and we know what he can bring to the table. I just don't think he has, and I'm not upset that he's been released. I am upset that there are no replacements for some other underperforming players. There's 1 or 2 others that really do need to have a look at themselves, unfortunately. I mean, if you purely put it down to a stats perspective, then at the moment, I think there's an awful lot of focus on Carter, although, you know, he's sort of up there with our better performing players, and I'll stress this again purely from a statistical perspective. He's in you know, he's sort of in the top. What is he? He's in the top 5, top 6 for total points scored from the beginning of the season, and that's in Elite League and Challenge Cup. But following us coming back from Hacker, he's actually he's on 3 points, and you know, our top point scorer for the last 4 games is Alex Nicky Onorati, and he's only on 4. So, you know, if as it stands at the moment, I would be a bit nervous about Carter being the first one on the chopping block, which is odd, really, because it is. I've been sort of going with the crowd, it would seem, and just sort of saying that, you know, he's one that maybe should be looking over his shoulder a little bit, but, you know, as it stands at the moment, we need the points, and Carter is one of the guys that the points are coming from. So, we've got a couple of others. McMillan is not doing what he was doing last season. I mean, he wasn't setting anything alight in terms of points, but it's been quite a disappointing haul for him so far. It's not going to help his cause if he keeps getting shoved back on defence either. And he's only going to come under more scrutiny for that. Somebody that has kind of surprised me as well is Jeff Brown. I mean, I know we're sort of talking about the core of Chris Lawrence's mates, as it were, but you know, you have to remember that Jeff Brown came to us with the David Ling seal of approval, so I expected a lot more from him. So, I would not be surprised to see some more player movement in the coming weeks.
Okay. Well, Kudroc will make his debut against the Coventry Blaze in a Challenge Cup game on Friday. He's already in the country and will start training tomorrow. Okay, looking back at the weekend's games, and on Saturday, Panthers travelled to Altrincham to take on the Manchester Storm in an Elite League game. The Storm winning 4-3, which is their first competitive victory against the Panthers since they returned last season. In the first period, Matt Bissonnette opened the scoring before Taylor Dicking increased the lead on the power play. Matt Carter reduced the arrears before the end of the first period, but Cody Cartier and Dickin with his second made it 4-1 Storm before Eric Lindargen reduced the arrears 3 seconds before the end of the second period. In the third period, Nicky Onorati made it 4-3, but Panthers could not get the equalising goal. As none of us were there, we got the opinions of someone who was, Antoine Marie-Jean, who is part of Panthers Hockey Live and has, of course, been on the podcast a few times this season. He gave us his thoughts on the game.
Yeah, it wasn't great. Wasn't the best of performances from the Panthers. Pretty much what you saw on Sunday, to be honest. A couple of chances that the Panthers had, but you know, too many times the puck was shot straight at the goaltender. passives were going to feet rather than to skate. Turnovers galore. It was disappointing. I mean, there was a decent number of Panthers fans made the trip. It certainly made a bit of noise. There was a few spots where the Manchester goaltender kept pushing the net off repeatedly. And in fact, one of those, it looked like when we hit the post with about 3 or 4 minutes to go in the game, the goal was actually in front of the goal line. So, yeah, if that had gone, if the goal had been on where it should have been, that could quite as easily have gone in. We've been looking at a draw and overtime, which is no way more than what we deserve, should I say. Manchester were just better than us, and despite being short benched, they lost Dariusz Jasinski in the first period after what looked like a pretty horrific sort of tangle up of skates. He just sort of collapsed on the ice and he walked past us in the second period with his arm in a sling, so I don't know what's happened there. And they had a man chucked out at the end of the second period, and the only entertaining bit of the game for the Panthers when Jeff Brown and Valkak from the Storm exchanged pleasantries right at the end of the second after the Panthers goal that may or may not have gone in. I need to see the replay myself. Farmer got involved, and one of their players left the bench, got himself chucked out for that. So, yeah, all in all, disappointing. Panthers turned it up in the third, but too little, too late, unfortunately. Again, more what we've been looking at over the last couple of games.
Many thanks to Ant there for giving his thoughts on the game. Tina, you've seen the highlights, and I think Ant's pretty much got it spot on.
Yeah, well, I mean, he had the misfortune to see the entire game, so I can't, sort of embellish anything that he said, only just to sort of add, a couple of thoughts. I mean, obviously there was a bit of controversy. I believe it was around Lindhagen's goal.
Yeah, the second goal.
Yeah, because they were absolutely convinced it had gone either under or. I think under was what they were saying. It had gone under the goal rather than through the goal mouth as it should have done. So that caused an awful lot of ruckus in the resulting face-off. In the last 3 seconds or whatever it was. Goal line technology. That's the only response I've got to that. Goal line technology, whichever one.
The one that was supposed to be available about 6 weeks ago.
Whichever teams it is that's having the dispute with the landlords of the owners of the rinks or arenas or whatever, just get it sorted out, because this is just getting ridiculous. And I think I caught a bit of the interview that Pasha did at the end of the highlights. He says if that goal gets washed out, then all the trouble that happens at the end of that second period, that doesn't happen, because the decision is it's clear. You can make a decision on a video replay, not on what you think you saw. Just goal line technology is my only response to that. The only other thing I would say about the highlights I watched, if anybody wants to correct me or give a different opinion on this, please feel free. But there were 1 or 2 occasions where the forwards left the defence to do the defence. The goals, couple of goals that the Storm scored. The goals are scored, and then all of a sudden the forwards come trailing in. Where's the busting a gut to try and track back and stop that goal from going in? I think there's a little bit of a division going on. There's a definite division of labour on a couple of those goals, and that's not how I want to see my team playing.
Well, we can talk about how we saw our team playing, because we're going to move on to Sunday's game against the Belfast Giants. Another defeat at the NIC. Giants coming away with a 4-2 victory. Blair Riley opening the scoring on the power play, and then early in the second period, Brandon Benedict also on the power play made it 2-0. Alex Nikiforuk made it 2-1 just a minute after, again on the power play, before Jim Vandermeer restored the 2-goal advantage for Belfast at 26-38. Into the third period, and Brad Moran gave Panthers hope with a power play goal at 42:50, but it was all in vain as Panthers again couldn't find the equaliser, and Michael Forney wrapped it up with 19 seconds remaining with an empty net goal. We were all at this game. We had a very long discussion in the bunkers last night after the game about basically what we was going to say here tonight, and I think the feeling amongst us all was just so empty, Paul.
That's right. It was just I think I said to Tina at one point that, you know, I just have no idea. If I was Corey Nielsen, you know, I'd have no idea what to do next, apart from admit that it's his fault because he's the one who signed these players. Who, I mean, what's he come out and said? That basically they were trying hard, but they were doing the wrong things. Well, whose fault's that? You know, I mean, yes, it's the players, but, you know, Nielsen's got to take some of the responsibility as well, I believe. But it was just nothing. There was nothing there in... Was it as bad as the Edinburgh game the week before? Possibly. It was just lifeless. I think you could argue that the passing was better. There weren't as many passes that were going to feet rather than sticks, but they just looked as though they'd got at best no idea.
I mean, Tina, they're looking like a team that's extremely low on confidence. It's almost as if someone's flicked a switch who was doing well, who was on one regulation defeat for the season. Then the last time the Giants were here, 2-1 overtime loss. And since then, the Continental Cup aside, the league form has been nothing short of dreadful.
It's been a diabolical watch for the last fortnight. It's like we've gone across to the Continental Cup, you know, full of confidence. You know, we've had a decent start, and we've played some opposition that is below par, and we've forgotten what the opposition is like back home in the domestic competition. And you know, we've fallen, you know, in last week's games because we didn't flick the switch back to Elite League level. And now, because we've got those two defeats last week, you know, it's become a habit. And I agree with what you're saying. The team they look devoid of confidence. They look like they don't know what to do. They're getting frustrated. It's not. There's no spark. There's no. There's no. I don't know. I don't even know. I mean, not that I, you know, not that I want to harp on about, you know, seasons past, but I can well imagine if we were in this kind of slump and we had somebody with the personality of Cam Jansen, that something would happen. I don't know what. I mean, I'm not saying this is Brian McGrattan's fault. I'm not saying it's down to him to be Cam Jansen. I'm saying that, you know, that we've got. But if he was still with us, maybe he, you know, I can imagine that he would. It's not just Cam Jansen. It's the personality. It's that guy. You know, that go get him attitude that he had, and nobody seems to have that at the moment. It's just not happening, and the mistakes are creeping in, and the heads are going down, and it's like Christmas has come early.
Yeah. I mean, Paul, Giants came in after a 4-1 defeat against the Blaze on Saturday night, so they weren't high on confidence themselves. It was missing Chris Higgins, who got a match penalty, but they looked far and away a much better team, a much more disciplined and much more together team than the Panthers on the night.
Well, they did, and you wouldn't say that they looked, you know, world beaters.
If they looked like world beaters, then we would have been the wrong side of a horrific scoreline.
Exactly. I mean, I think what's going to happen when we play Sheffield at the weekend. But
save that for Thursday. But
I mean, what one thing I would say to pick up on, you know, what Tina was saying about what's missing. Where's the leadership? You know, we're talking about a team that's short on confidence or whatever. Who's there to lift them? You know, where's the captain in all this?
Another thing that has been brought to light to us is that some players were supposedly on holiday last week.
We know supposedly about it, judging by that picture.
Well, there was one player who put something on social media, but we've had it revealed to us that other players were. We don't know whether this is the case, so we're not going to give any names away at all. But if that is the case, after such a poor weekend, and then the results this weekend, that's probably not the right preparation at all.
Well, no. I mean, don't get me wrong. I fully understand that they're humans. They need to relax and all things, but they also need to appreciate that, people are paying their hard-earned money to go and watch them play, to see them put effort in, week out. Everybody's going to have bad games. Not every day I go to work, is the best, but you have to, they get the whole summer off. I'd love a holiday right now. I'd love to disappear off for a couple of days, but I can't do that because I've got to work. I've got bills to pay, and they've got to. I think they've got to take a responsibility on themselves and say, right, I've got to knuckle down here. Sitting on a beach somewhere is not knuckling down.
No, not at all.
No, I mean, the thing is, the way I think about it is, and like Paul says, they get 5 months off where they can, go off and do whatever it is that they do in the summer. If they want to go on a holiday and if they've got another job, whatever. I mean, the summer's theirs to do whatever they want with, because they're not essentially at work. And how I would compare it is, if a teacher were to have a bad Ofsted report, would they go on holiday the following week in term time? It's not too dissimilar to that, because from August, or whenever your training camp starts for your team, right through to our season, the first or second weekend in April, you're at work. So is it appropriate for you to be taking holidays in the middle of your working period? And especially the other thing is that public perception. You look at that. I mean, that came out to us, be it last week,
and we've discussed between ourselves whether we've deliberated long and hard whether we mention it or not. But seeing as what one of the players has put it on social media, it's essentially out there.
It is out there. It's not. We're not breaking anything that is private. It's not like we've gone out there and found it. It's there for the whole world to see, because it's on the internet. Yeah. And it's again public perception. You've gone on holiday after we've had a dismal 0-point weekend, and you've come back from your holiday, and we've had another 0-point weekend. So it looks even worse now.
Okay. Another thing that has been mentioned, this goes back to sort of players coming and players going, is that Evan Mosey is being reassigned to the ECHL affiliate of Rockford Indy Fuel. A lot of people saying, this means he's up for a possible return. I've got to say, knowing Evan, I think he will stick it out and try and get his place back at Rockford. It would be great to see him back, and boy do we need him, but I think people could be barking up the wrong tree. I think it's hope and expectation more than actually going to happen, because I think Evan will stick it out.
Yeah, I would agree. I hope he does. I want him to work his backside off and get himself back up to Rockford, and then work his backside off and get himself in with, I don't know, catching distance of the NHL. I want him to do really well. If it doesn't work out for him, I would absolutely love to have him back. I don't care what he was offered before. Better it. And I don't care what anybody else is offering, because there will be, because he was a well sought after player, especially in this league. So I don't care what anybody else is offering him. Make it more.
We asked for some comments from you, the listeners, earlier today. Jerome Lucy got in touch with us when we asked, where do you think it's going wrong? And he's basically made a list. He's put, to begin, 1, Europe, 2, imports not performing, 3, system and lines with current players, and 4, injuries. Paul, do you think that's a fair list?
I'm not entirely sure about Europe. I don't really see that we can use that as an excuse or a reason, to be honest, because I didn't actually. I mean, yeah, we were winning games, but I didn't think we were actually that great before we went away. There were no games where except perhaps the Cardiff one right at the start of the season, where we looked as though we were sort of dominating. We were controlling teams, controlling games. So, but the fact that it almost there are times last night and in other games where it almost seems like every time we have a line change, we've got a different line now. A different. And obviously, you can have a different line, but different sets of players. You've got to reach a point where you've got to have settled lines.
Well, I mean, last season, I know me and Andy had a bit of a discussion about this on one of the podcasts that we did. And, we were talking about pairings, we were sort of discussing that, in the NHL, they have pairs. And then your third man, that he essentially becomes interchangeable unless the whole line does gel. We don't even seem to have any pairings at the moment. It just, I mean, especially on Sunday, it just seemed to be really random. As regards who was out there, it was just a right wing, a centre, and a left wing, and it didn't seem, there was no consistency over who it was, and it just I don't know if that's part of the plan or if it's just trying to find the right combination for the night or what, but I don't know if it contributed to the performance of the game. But that's a coaching thing, and I'm not willing to put my foot in my mouth again about
that. Dave Bull, he says, not one player on this current team gives me any confidence at this rate we'll be battling for the last playoff spot. I mean, I can't see it coming to that, if I'm honest, because I think we are still a good team, and we proved earlier in the season that we are a good team. This team can play, it can perform, but I certainly agree with him with at the moment the players aren't really giving me any confidence.
No, there's nothing. There's no one there that you look at and think they can they can grab a game by the horns and turn it round for us. Really, there's nobody you say, oh yeah, if he has a good game tonight, we can win. It just lifeless.
All right, well, we will leave that there. If you want to get in touch and make your own comments about where you think the Panthers going wrong, what's going wrong, what you think needs to change, get in touch at Cats Whiskers TV. Use the hashtag TCW Live. Okay, we're going to move on. And last week, the Sheffield Steelers announced that they wouldn't be doing webcasts for the foreseeable future for Panthers-Steelers games played at the Sheffield Arena. Their statement said that the issue of venues screening Steelers games illegally has been highlighted in Nottingham. We have written to the venues concerned, but to date they continue to buy a single licence to show in a public place. This is against our webcast terms and conditions. This led to a lot of accusations flying about last week, and obviously we thought we'd give some of those establishments the right to reply. So yesterday I got the chance to have a chat with the manager of the Bunkers Hill Inn, Nicky Onorati, and the landlady of the Nottingham Legend, Shelley Belcher. I'm with Shelly Belcher, the landlady of the Nottingham Legend, and Nicky Onorati, the manager of the Bunkers Hill Inn. And they're responding to the statement put out by the Sheffield Steelers about why they won't be doing webcasts for Nottingham games due to licensed premises showing the game for their normal rate rather than a commercial rate. So, Shelley, I'll start with you. What's your response to the statement that they put out?
I don't think it's got anything to do with anybody showing any games. I think it's basically to get bums on seats.
And Nicky, your response?
Yeah, completely agree. The statement that was put out on social media said that they'd contacted various offending venues. The only two venues I know of that would benefit from showing any games would be both mine and Shelley's venues, and neither of us have received any correspondence from Sheffield or the Elite League.
We have actually emailed. Every club has received an email offering from us, I don't know about Bunkers Hill, but from the Nottingham Legend, £100 per webcast for every single one that's shown, and we've not had one response from any emails.
So, on that basis, do you think it's actually fair what they've put out?
No, I think it's unfair, and there's a slight bit of defamation of character on both, say, mine and Shelley's behalf, the Bunkers Hill and the Legend, and also it's unfair on the vast majority of people that buy the webcast because they physically either unable to go to the game because it's sold out, or B, work commitments, family commitments, what else, can't physically get to a game. So I think it's bang out of order.
Shelley?
I do think we need to say that neither pub was actually mentioned. We're only assuming that it's partly about us, but neither of us have had correspondence, so maybe it's not about us. Well, I can say that Coventry Blaze, as an example, want £250 for a webcast. When I asked them for a VAT receipt and their commercial licence number, they put the phone down on me. And they blocked me, so I can't show their webcast anyway. Edinburgh, the email that I got from them said it would be £400 per webcast, but it was only good enough quality to watch on a laptop or a PC. And I mean, if we have 15 people in to watch a webcast on a Sunday afternoon, say that's 5 different groups of people, that's £8 even. So £8. I'm offering to pay £100. So they'd be making more on it. I'll be lucky to get a £50 profit on that day. With it being a Sunday or a midweek game, it's just we're not making a profit on the webcast. We're showing it because customers either, like Nicky said, can't get there, or they're at work and they've finished late, so they can't get there. They can't take a family there, or can't afford to take a family there. They don't have internet at home. Not everybody has internet at home. The older people that come to my pub to watch the webcast can't access it at home because they don't have a PC or an iPad or internet.
It's not just that as well. We've sort of both set ourselves out right from the very beginning. We want to be Nottingham's home of hockey outside of the arena. So people want to watch the games with their friends and their family, and it's not feasible always to do that at somebody's home. So our pubs do provide the perfect venues, the perfect atmosphere to do that. And we're almost feeling like we can no longer do it because they're pricing us out of putting on the events.
All right, well, guys, I want to thank you very, very much for your time, and well, I'm sure this has got a long way to go.
I think you might be right.
So, Shelley and Nicky there with their response to Sheffield's statement. Many thanks to them for coming on and being prepared to say what they feel, basically. And Tina, they have every right to respond to that statement.
Well, they do. I mean, I agree with what Nicky said about the defamation of character, because at the very least you've got the Legend faithful blaming the Bunkers, and you've got the Bunkers loyal blaming the Legend. I mean, it's because you know the pub that you go in, and you know the publicans, and you sort of you can say very, very certainly what happens in the pub. And I mean, we go to Bunkers, we know Nicky's above board, and we know he doesn't bother getting the webcast because it's just too much like hard work. He's not going to make anything out of it, so why should he? It's if and the other thing as well, I mean, Sheffield are claiming that they have contacted the venues, and both Shelley and Nicky have said they've had no contact. And I cannot think for 1 minute who else is going to benefit from showing a webcast in Nottingham, because there's no other establishments that have got any kind of hockey ties, if you will. So it just, none of it makes any sense. That's the statement that Sheffield have made doesn't make any sense. Now that we've heard it from the horse's mouth, if you will, it's not them, and it just doesn't make any sense. It really bothers me. If you're gonna make an accusation like that, then and if you've had no response from the people you've allegedly contacted, then you should be naming the places so that so that the people who aren't involved don't get their names dragged through the mud.
Paul, we've just been talking. We said that we would have probably got the webcast on Saturday because we can't make the game, so we wouldn't have bought a ticket anyway, so that's £8 they're missing out on. Tina, you would have bought it, so that's another £8. We're not going to be the only ones. But do you think this is probably more of a ploy to get more bums on seats, but using this as a bit of a veil?
Can I just point out to begin that we don't actually live together?
Well, no.
What you just said made it sound like we did. I'd be coming around your house and watching it.
With the scratchings.
Don't worry, Sheffield. I know it's probably against your rules, but I do bring the scratchings, so that's all right. What was the question?
Do you think it's a really a thinly veiled attempt at really saying that we want more bums on seats? I mean, I know we are not in a position really to complain about webcasting, as Panthers have never offered one apart from one occasion, but at the same time...
Ironically, a Sheffield game.
Yeah.
Yes, I think it probably is. Yet again, it's the losing £8 rather than making £8, however the difference in the ticket is again. But yeah, I think you're right, it is a thinly veiled. I also think it's a thinly veiled attempt to be the first one to get to the moral high ground. Personally, look at us, we're making a stand. You're also cutting the notes off to spite your face.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure that this will continue on for probably the foreseeable future.
Well, just one other thing I want to mention. It's like some of the prices that have come out of all of this. Some of the prices that teams expect to charge for corporate webcasting. No, that's not the word, is it? But anyway, broadcasting in a public place. Have a word with yourselves. Let's just take one of the examples there. £400 for the Edinburgh Capitals webcast, and the quality of it is not good enough to be shown on anything bigger than a laptop. I mean, don't get me wrong. Again, we're in no position to be, to be having a big attack on people who do webcasts, but it's just.
It's a ludicrous amount of money.
Yeah. Get a touch of realism. Seriously, just get a touch of realism. It's great that you offer the service, but you have to price it fairly. Based on what you can provide and what your customers are going to get out of it. It doesn't make any sense. I mean, it's just starting to really wind me up.
On that case,
yeah, we probably better move on before I do a periscope.
Before Tina explains. Oh God, no, don't do this. Don't threaten things like that. You know what happened last night, right?
Yeah, don't periscope or podcast angry because it hurts you.
In the few minutes we've got left, we'll quickly go through the rest of the Elite League results and news from the past few days. The biggest news being that Ben Davies has signed for the Coventry Blaze after being cut in the ECHL, so he's come back to the UK but signed for Coventry. Paul, is that a surprise? Because Braehead was his old club. Of course, he is a Cardiff native, so Coventry seems to be quite out of the blue.
We're sort of halfway between them. It is a bit, but I mean, it depends what offer was on the table, doesn't it? We've all got to work. We've all got to make money, pay for holidays and things like that. Ice hockey tickets, things like that. So yeah. Maybe it wasn't the first team you'd chosen, but it depends what's on the table.
I mean, Tina, we've talked about Panthers Britpack a lot over the past few weeks, and would you like to think that the Panthers at least put an offer in for him?
I'd be disappointed if they didn't.
Yeah. Okay, other news from the results from the weekend. Cardiff Devils with a triple header. They won 4-1 in Edinburgh on Friday. Also beat the Dundee Stars in a shootout on Saturday, but lost 4-0 to the Fife Flyers on Sunday, a result which sees Fife go to second in the Elite League. So, Paul, I think they'll be quite happy with 4 points from 6, which consolidates their position at the top of the league.
Well, they'd probably be looking at that sort of return, yeah. But like our triple header, did they just run out of legs on the Sunday night? Are these triple headers that good an idea?
Yeah, it's
great idea for the fans. They get that little holiday, but we're not. Hockey teams should not be planning their fixtures around how much fun it is for the fans. No. It's about finding the best ways to win.
Yep. Chris Higgins received a match penalty for butt ending in Coventry on Saturday night as the Blaze skated to a 4-1 win over the Giants, as we mentioned earlier. Tina, quite out of character for Higgins.
Well, yeah, but we've all seen how Kevin Noble can wind people up. I'm totally joking. It's a very bizarre penalty for Chris Higgins to be taken. It's not something I haven't seen anything of it, but yeah, it's not something I would expect to see from him. But he's served his punishment, and no ill has come of it from the Belfast Giants because they still beat us.
Yeah, and of course Dops will take a look at it this week to see if he gets any supplemental punishment on top of the match.
No further action.
You're probably right. The Steelers were also in Scotland over the weekend. They were 5-1 up against the Edinburgh Capitals before the Caps came back to draw 5-5, take it into overtime, Steelers winning on the shootout. Steelers then going to Dundee the following night and getting a bit of a spanking, 4-0, which I must admit was a bit of a surprise.
I think both of those 4-0s were a surprise. I didn't expect either of those coming. I would have expected the Steelers and the Devils to at least have registered a goal. So yeah, for them to get shut out was a bit of a shock, to be honest.
However, to look at the sort of situation, go back to Panthers and the situation they find themselves in. Steelers with just 2 defeats from the season. Cardiff with just 3, so Panthers now on 7. So it just goes to show that if we want to compete, we've got to start putting the victories together and stop losing.
Definitely. I mean, anything is still possible, but you look at them and you think that's not league winning quality. There, I mean, I think it was like a form chart the last 5 games. We're bottom.
Yeah, 1 point.
We're bottom by a good 2 points.
Yeah.
And you look at other things. We've already lost 4 times as many games against the other conference as we did in the season we won the league.
Yeah, and that's quite a sobering statistic, to say the least. Finally, Blaze can still qualify for the Challenge Cup knockout stages after beating Storm 3-0 on Sunday. Blaze, of course, face the Panthers this Friday at the NIC in a Challenge Cup game. Panthers, of course, having already qualified for the next stage. Okay, I think time is almost up on us, and we will be back for Ask TCW, which returns on Wednesday. So please... Have
I got time to just read out something that's coming on Twitter? Would that be...
Yeah, of course you can.
Yeah, Anton Marijon has got in touch at Marty Powers, and he's put forward Saltbox as a suggestion for an establishment that would have something to gain in terms of showing a webcast. I'm not quite sure what the clientele is there at the moment, so I'm not sure how well established they are in terms of the hockey crowd. He says, for what it's worth, he's with Shelly, but it's a bums on seats thing and a dig at us for not having a webcast of our own.
I think fair comment. I pretty much agree with him there, to be honest. So Ask TCW, it returns on Wednesday, so send in your questions at Cats Whiskers TV. Use the hashtag AskTCW. Email us TCWonlinetv@gmail.com. or of course use the various Facebook outlets, so the GMB Panthers page, the Nottingham Panthers fans page, or the Panthers layer, or of course the TCW Facebook page itself, or our dedicated thread on the Cage forum in order to leave a question. We've had a couple already, so I'm expecting it to be a busy show. So all that's left is to say thank you very much to Paul Balm.
That's all right. Can I just say one last thing?
Yeah.
I still hate that Panther bear. But
Fair enough.
I think we ought to have a competition to get it a name.
Fair enough. Tweet that in, and we can read a few out on our show.
Hashtag stupid bear thing.
Also, if blah blah, I've lost my thread now. Thank you to Tina.
TTFN.
And thank you very much to you for listening. We're back on Wednesday, 8:45 PM live with Ask TCW. Until then, thanks very much and goodbye.